We are live.
Good morning, everyone. This meeting will now come to order. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Durham Historic Preservation Commission on this 14th day of June 2022. My name is Matt Bouchard, and I am chair of the commission. This commission is a quasi-judicial board of record, and as such, all testimony will be recorded. Under this procedure, our meeting today will also be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel. The proceedings of this board are governed by the zoning laws as recorded. As such, please note the steps we have taken to ensure that each party's due process rights are protected as we proceed on this remote platform. First, today's meeting will be conducted in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 166A, Section 19.24, which allows for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during declarations of emergency. Second, each applicant on today's agenda was notified before being placed on the agenda that this meeting would be conducted using a remote electronic platform. Every applicant on today's agenda has consented to the board conducting the evidentiary hearing on their request using this remote platform. We will also confirm today at the start of each evidentiary hearing that the participants in the hearing consent to the matter proceeding in this remote platform. If there is any objection to a matter proceeding in this remote platform, that case will be continued. Third, notice of this meeting was provided to the applicants and to the public in multiple ways, including signage posted on site, notification letters mailed to all adjacent property owners, informing recipients regarding the remote platform, and a general announcement via our website, informing the public of the same. The notices for today's meeting advise the public on how to access the remote meeting as the meeting occurs. Individuals wishing to participate in today's evidentiary hearings were required to register prior to the meeting. Information about this registration requirement, along with information about how to sign up to participate, was included in the mailed notice letters sent to each adjacent property owner. This information was also included on the board's website. The public was advised to contact the city immediately in case of objection to an evidentiary hearing or to the remote meeting platform. As far as I'm aware, there are no cases scheduled today that will be proceeding in which the city has been contacted by an individual with an objection either to the case or to the matter being heard in this remote meeting platform. All individuals participating in today's evidentiary hearings were also required to submit a copy of any presentation, document, exhibit, or other material they wished to submit at the evidentiary hearing prior to today's meeting. All materials that the city received from the participants in today's cases, as well as a copy of city staff's presentations and documents, were posted online prior to this meeting. The agenda and all materials to be discussed today may be viewed at any time during today's meeting by visiting the web link for today's agenda via Durham's Agenda Center. Finally, all individuals who registered to participate in an evidentiary hearing on today's agenda, as well as all city staff participants, were emailed a witness oath and consent to a remote hearing form prior to today's meeting. Any individual planning to testify or submit evidence in an evidentiary hearing was notified that they must sign the oath prior to today's meeting. We will also reaffirm everyone's oath on the record at today's meeting. Are there any members of this board that would have any conflicts of interest with regard to any of the cases that are before us today?
I believe I might have a conflict of interest for the one the cases that's to do with the Fayetteville Street case, the 1700 block Fayetteville Street, because I case 220026. I'm employed by North Carolina.
You're employed by the university?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Calhoun. That's helpful. Anybody else have a potential conflict with any of the cases today?
Chair Bouchard, Andy Goolsby. I will be honest, I did have a brief conversation with one of the principals of Evoke who is also for case 0026, the 1712 Fayetteville Street, but didn't go beyond just knowledge that they had submitted a case and that it was involved with the campus. So no details. I think I can vote partially in this case.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair Goolsby. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. We will vote to recuse Commissioner Calhoun on case number COA 22-00026 when that case is called. Are there any early dismissals being requested today? Fantastic. As chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, I'd like to remind everyone that our quasi-judicial hearings function similar to a court proceeding. Staff will first present an overview of the case, and then the applicant will have an opportunity to present their evidence. Opponents, if any, may then present their evidence, and the applicant may then present a rebuttal. Board members will refrain from questions or comments until each speaker has completed his or her presentation. Testimony should consist of facts each witness knows directly, not hearsay. Evidence already presented need not be repeated. All witnesses who have signed up in advance will be given the opportunity to speak, and their testimony will be recorded. The board will vote on each case after the presentation of all evidence pro and con concerning that case. All decisions of this board are subject to appeal to the Board of Adjustment and then to the Durham County Superior Court. Clerk Holmes, could you please take the attendance of the commissioners who are here today?
Okay. Chair Bouchard,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Present. And Matt, can I tack on? We had talked about this via email in advance. I can stay till noon. If we go past that, I'll have to leave.
And I'm going to do my best to keep us on task and done well before noon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
Here.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Here.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Here.
and Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
I will also note that we will have joining us in an observing capacity is Rakeem Chambers, a new member of our board who is going to be observing today's hearing, but will not be voting on any cases today. Carla, I'm correct in that, correct?
That's correct.
Great, thank you. Commissioners or staff, you've been forwarded an agenda for today's meeting. Would anyone like to recommend any revisions to that agenda? Okay,
No revisions from staff.
great. Thank you, Carla. And commissioners, you've also been provided in advance of today's hearing minutes from our last commission hearing, which took place on May 3, 2022. Does anyone have any adjustments to the draft minutes they would like to recommend? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask if somebody would like to make a motion.
I can make a
Motion to approve. Oh, go ahead, Cora.
I can make a motion to approve the May 3rd minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Fieselman. Can we have a second?
Second, Goolsby.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goolsby. Clerk Holmes, roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved?
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approve.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
Approved.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry.
Approved.
Motion passes 7-0.
Wonderful, thank you. And Madam Clerk, if you could please swear in all city staff that will be presenting today's cases.
Do you, members of staff, swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's cases is the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Carla Rosenberg, I do.
Grace Smith, I do.
Wonderful. Thank you both. We are now prepared to move forward with the first hearing on our agenda. I would ask that Commissioner Johnson turn her camera on, please. Thank you very much. In the first case on our agenda, I'll announce as Chris is bringing in the participants, is COA 22-00015, 101 West Markham Avenue. Before we hear from staff, is there anyone of our commissioners who may have a conflict of interest in hearing this case? Seeing and hearing none, let us proceed to swearing in of those who plan to speak in favor of the case. It looks like they are still coming into the meeting.
Chair, this is Chris Peterson. I'm just waiting on Charlene Reese.
Okay,
Charlene, if you have a confirmation, you might just need to accept it.
and Charles, if I could have a pronunciation of your last name, please.
It's Boltice.
Boltice. Thank you very much. Mr. There you go. I was about to ask you, Mr. Boltice, to turn on your video. Thank you for doing that. And so we're waiting for, is Mark going to be participating, Chris?
He did not sign up to speak.
Okay.
He's my spouse. We're the neighbors.
Okay. Wonderful. So it looks like we have Ms. Reese and Mr. Boltice here. Madam Clerk, if you could please administer the oath to each.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
I do.
And in the same order, starting with Mr. Boltice and then Ms. Reese, do you each consent to the hearing of your case today using this electronic remote platform?
I do.
I do.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We may now proceed with the staff summary.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Just going to share my screen. Okay. So this is case COA 22-00015, 101 West Markham Avenue, modifications and site work. The applicant and owner are Charles Boltice. It's located on the southwest corner of the intersection of West Markham Avenue and North Mangum Street, zoned residential urban 5. This is not in a historic district, but it is a historic landmark named the Dillard House. And the applicant is proposing both retroactive work and new work. The retroactive work includes the replacement of vinyl windows. They weren't original, but some vinyl windows that were on the structure previously. And then also a front door and the removal of a brick wall that's around the front and north side of the property, as well as removal of a few trees from the front and rear yards. Some new work would include some extensive repairs to the siding and framing of the house, as well as the roof. Wood siding is going to require removing the new windows, the replacement windows, and putting new siding that will match the original. The roof work, that's to repair some fire damage that happened 40 years ago. They're planning to reframe the roof structure, replace some of the original materials in the eaves, as well as remove the original slate roof and replace with a new roof, material to be determined. And then also reconstructing a front portico that has some balustrades that are missing, some of the steps and floor area are original or slightly altered. And then I think that covers the majority of the work. So I'd like to introduce this staff report into the record and invite Mr. Boltheis to give further details about his case. And Mr. Boltheis, you can just tell me what page in the report to skip to, and I'm happy to show the images that accompany your proposal.
Oh, thank you very much, Carla. I wish I had memorized where the pictures were on each page. I think that I'd like to begin by saying that I bought this house originally with the intention of restoring it back to a single family home. It was at one time, as Carly stated, the Dillard House, and that was a prominent family here in the city of Durham. Sometime in the 70s, there was a fire and somebody bought the property and remodeled it as a 5-apartment building instead of a single family structure, and applied for and received substantial funds for historic preservation. But no historic preservation was done on the home. They did not remove the fire damaged members in the framing or in the roof trusses. They replaced the windows with vinyl, white vinyl windows. They installed metal staircases in the back and on the side of the home. And it generally has a very cut up, run down, ignored, non-historic feel to it at this stage. It certainly doesn't have any prominent appearance other than its structure from a distance is magnificent. I love the appearance of the home from a distance. I moved into the home and wanted to get a feel for it before I decided how I wanted to remodel the interior. But during the time that I was living there, my front porch was rotting away. The boards in the floor gave way to delivery people when delivering goods to the home. The roof was falling down on the porticos. The sunroom to the left of the front porch was leaking into the house. And as a result, I demolished the existing front porch with the intention of replacing it as it was using like-kind materials. I also removed the roof from the sunroom when doing so. But then as I started to take pieces of wood out, I realized that there was a lot of rotted wood supporting these things. And it was like, as I took one piece of wood out, I had to take another piece of wood out in order to get to a piece of wood that I could nail the new wood into. The main drain to the sewer runs on the north side of the property. And that was damaged by roots that got in and broke up the piping. And so within 2 weeks of me buying the house, that happened. So we had to replace the main sewer line, and then I decided it was a good idea to remove the trees so that the problems wouldn't continue. Well, then the trees on the front of the house were lifting up the red brick wall and causing that to bend, crack, and pieces to come off. So I removed those trees. It was at that point that I got a stop work order from the city, and I was told that this was a historic landmark. I thought it was just a home that was on the National Historic Registry, and that I was doing work that was, allowed to be done. So I stopped and waited and spoke to Carly, and she explained my errors and sort of helped me walk through the process of trying to put together a plan. But some of this work had already been done, leading up to this. And so that's why we have, requests in hindsight for the work that we did already. With regards to the windows, I thought that by replacing the old vinyl windows, which were 0/0 as far as panels, with newer ones that matched my area, the homes in my neighborhood, which the majority had 9/0, that would really help it fit back into the neighborhood. I've since been told that some of the windows in the original building of the house had more panels than the ones that I bought. But the windows themselves, they're not tinted. There's nothing that would cause them to appear to be out of date. They are made with a combination of resin and wood for the framing. They're made by Anderson, renewal by Anderson. They're the most energy efficient window that I could find on the market. And they were all made custom to this home. I did not replace the front door. That front door is still there. The transom above the front door is still there. The windows that are up in the widow peak or the captain's cabin, those are still intact. It was just the majority of them were the windows that were on the first floor were all 0/0. There were only a couple on the front of the house there that were multi-panel. The stairs that are on the side of the home, the stairs that are on the back of the home, those are all metal and they're rotting out. The steps themselves are degrading. They're steel and they're rusted and they're falling apart. On the side of the house, we have a large amount of rot on both the north and the south side. It's my intention to replace the roof on the house, which is now leaking. And oh, by the way, when Anderson came out to install the windows, that's when we found that the framing on the sides of the house, not just the roof, were completely rotted out and or damaged by fire. And so currently those $130,000 of windows are being held in by orange foam because there's no good wood to nail them into. So the intent is Anderson is going to come back out, remove the windows to keep the warranty intact, store them in their location. I will have the siding removed. I will have the framing on the home redone, the trusses redone, new wood siding installed, and then they will come back with the windows to put them back into place. With regards to the front porch, the old photographs of the home show that there's a railing on the second story. I think that looks fantastic, and I would like to reincorporate that to match what the old photos were. It was the same as the first floor. It was rounded balusters with rounded railings with spindle balusters. I'm keeping the masonry on the front of the home and the front porch all intact. When the wall comes down, there was no wall in front of the house originally. And when the wall comes down, I would like to later ask to put up a simulated wrought iron fence so that wildlife can still keep coming and going, but the two-legged wildlife can't. I think that pretty much covers what my intent was and what I'd like to do to the home.
Thank you, Mr. Bolthuis. Ms. Reese, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, my husband and I are here just in support of getting this approved so that Mr. Bolthuis can continue the work and restore the house to a single family home would be great, and continue to have the house in the neighborhood.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Does any commissioner have any questions for the applicant before we entertain comments from anybody else?
I've got a question. This is Commissioner Fieseling. Thanks for the background on this. On the intent and background intro page, you described a garage and ADU. Is that coming in a later proposal, or is that now struck, or where does that fit in the mix?
Yeah, that's coming in a later proposal. The photographs, or excuse me, the plot plans that we have from earlier do show that they had a garage or a barn in the back of the property. And so when I do submit that request, I'm going to make sure that through the home itself and vegetation, I obstruct any view of an ADU or a garage from the street level when that is made later.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioners with questions for the applicant?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Johnson. I see that you're making this home single family home, but you will keep the stairs that are on the sides.
Commissioner, I would like to remove the stairs in the back of the building and the stairs on the side of the building. I'd prefer to remove those.
Okay. All right.
The balconies I wish to stay, but if you look in the center of that photograph, you'll see a staircase that is coming at an angle downward.
Yes.
That is metal. It is not original. It is ugly as sin. I want to get rid of that and the little brick wall that's in front of it, because that's where I'd like to put a ramp. Currently, my knees are open. I'm a disabled veteran, service disabled veteran, and at some point I anticipate needing a wheelchair, and I would like to have access from the back of the house. I intend to keep this home a very long time. So removing those stairs and that wall that encloses the stairs is going to be necessary to put a staircase and ramp up.
Okay, thank you. That part. Thank you.
Any other commissioners with questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Commissioner Hamilton.
Commissioner Hamilton, so I understand that removal of the trees returns the site to its historic character. Are you going to have any trees that you're going to come back with? Because currently the application doesn't have any, from what I can.
Right. Excuse me. I would like to have some white flowering dogwood trees in the front. They're kind of thin and they allow for a viewing of the home. They don't get excessively tall, and they do have a little bit of flowering during the spring. I'd like to put low vegetation on the north side of the property, which is fairly shaded. Indigenous North Carolina wildflowers. On the south side of the property, I'd like to put orange trumpet honeysuckle that will flower over the wrought iron fence that I will have between Miss Reese's property and mine. And then on the front, on the front will be the flowering dogwoods, and then pulled back toward the home. I'd like to add some color with some Japanese maples that would get probably 12 to 15 feet in height.
Okay. And that'll just all get done at a later date. That works for me. I just wanted to
Thank you.
make sure that we weren't going to have.
No, ma'am, I like flowers.
Yeah. It's one thing to open up a site. It's another to,
I do not want a barren landscape.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Any other commissioners with questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and just ask a couple questions. First, with respect to the slate roof, was any consideration given to the possibility that portions of the existing slate could have been salvaged and moved to street facing elevations of the structure as part of the roof replacement, or was that not practical?
When you say street facing, are you referring to the north side of the property that is on Markham?
Yes.
Because the face of the property is toward Mangum, and you can't see the roof from Mangum.
Okay.
Okay, so if you were to look, so that's the back of the house. At ground level, you can't see the roof. So from the front there, this is a rendering of what I would like the property to look like when I'm finished. I will remove the center staircase there as required. The material itself, as far as being slate, when I talked to the roofers about removing the slate, what they told me is that it's very heavy, it's very brittle because of its age, and that the likelihood of it surviving is slim, and that I would probably take what will be because I would like to put simulated slate on the roof so that it has the appearance of slate, but it has the modern characteristics and weatherproofing of today's materials. So I want it to look like it is slate, but I would like to have the home more weatherproofed, better insulated, more impervious to the time than the slate that's up there right now, which appears to be very brittle and just seems to be like I'm gonna have problems in the short term and not really provide any difference than if I had a simulated slate roof up there of new material. And it was very cost prohibitive. It was going to be around $75,000 instead of $25,000.
Thank you. That's helpful. I've got a question for you, Mr. Boltheis, that I think I need to ask a question of Carla about first. Carla, I note on page 4 of 11 of the staff report, there's a comment about the potential obstruction of significant views of the historic structure. Were you concerned? I'm actually going to ask about that picture you were just on. Is it the side deck with the stairs, Carla, that you've raised a concern about, or the deck above the portico? I just want to make sure I'm clear here on what the potential issue might be.
So not fully understanding exactly where in the staff report you're pointing to. Was it regarding the balconies and stairs?
You're right. While replacement of the metal side decks with new wood decks yields a better, more uniform and material appropriate result than the existing, the replacement decks are nevertheless two-story and cover the majority of the
Okay.
south side elevation, which is how they
Yes.
differ from the street.
So let me go to try to find the. So what I was referring to was the fact that, you know, this balcony at the front is on stilts.
Okay.
So it's really covering a large portion of this side elevation here. My opinion is that these three balconies here don't have a significant visual impact, but this one here does because of its height and how far forward it is on the house.
And that brings me to my question to Mr. Boltheis. Mr. Boltheis, could you explain to us the functionality of these decks? Is there a safety component or is it simply an amenity?
The deck that we're referring to now that is toward the southeast corner on the stilts, the photograph that we have of the house before the sunroom was actually added, so it's a very old photo, shows that balcony on stilts being attached to the home. It currently acts as a balcony off of what would become the smallest and fourth bedroom in that home. All the bedrooms will be upstairs, and this one is the smallest, so having a little outside space is going to make the bedroom feel bigger. And as I said in the older photos, it was there. But if it was in the opinion of the city council that it detracted from the beauty of the home, I can understand having that removed, and I'm not going to argue against that. The stairs that are in the center that are just to the west of that, those currently provide access to the second story from the exterior for what would have been tenants on the second floor. When it's going to be a single family home, that is not necessary. And I was afraid that the city would not let me remove that staircase. And so I had the draftsman create what would be basically a fire escape. In the event that there were a fire in the home, this would allow for the people in the sleeping portion of the home to exit the home through a secondary means of ingress and egress that hopefully would be away from the fire versus the main staircase in the home. So I was kind of taking lemons and making lemonade, I guess.
All of which is really, really important information. I thank you for your candor on it. When you mentioned, Mr. Boltheis, a potential willingness to remove the deck in the southeast corner, I think I'm seeing two decks on stilts. Were you referring just to the one in the southeast corner or to both sets of decks on stilts?
Carla, and in her writings, was referring to the main one that is forward in the visual that she has up right now. That is the one that is on the southeast corner of the property. The one that is in the center of the building that's on stilts, that is the one that would be what I was just describing as a fire escape.
Great, thank you. Very helpful information. Commissioners, any other questions for our applicant?
I have a question. Thank you for the further explanation about the stairs. I think that's what I was alluding to, the purpose of the additional decks and stairs. But also I have a question about the roof. I don't think I saw it in the report, but information you received about the brittle slate and that they weren't reusable, or you may not have had enough reusable slate to place at a highly visible location on the roof. Was the roofer an expert or knowledgeable with using historic roofing material, and have they dealt with slate before? Did he or she provide a report for you?
No, he is a roofer I've been using. I own a construction company as well, but he's a roofer I've been using for the last 15 years, but he doesn't speak great English. And to be honest, I did not ask him his history with this roofing material. I've just known him to be exceptionally good at his job, fair in his pricing, and always providing an excellent warranty. And so when he climbed up, I had two roofers climb up on the roof. Gabriel was, my favorite, but the other roofer gave me the same opinion, but I didn't ask either one of them to write a report because at the time that I had the roof inspected, it was prior to this entire process beginning by about a year. I was investigating during my first 2 years of living in the home, what type of remodeling or what type of repairs I would do. So I didn't actually, I told Carla when we were doing this meeting that I didn't have a roof report because I'd had it looked at 2 years ago. And I didn't have time to get another roofer out there to look at it and give me a written report for this meeting. But my understanding is that there are other properties of a historic nature that do have simulated slate roofs on them. And I would hope that, that would be a consideration the council would give me.
That was helpful. Thanks.
Are you able to provide addresses for those? Are they in the historic district?
Yes, Carla. Kate was the one that put that together, and she didn't give, well, she said she submitted it to you, but obviously she didn't. So I'll ask her for that information.
Any other questions from the commission?
I do have one more question for the applicant as relating to the slate roof. I just want to be sure I have enough information.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you, before considering simulated alternative to slate, did you consider, I forgot, there's a company, I think near here, that has used slate? Did you look into a company that sells used slate that's in good enough condition to?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will ask if there is anyone else who would like to speak for or against this case. And seeing and hearing from nobody, I will at this moment close the public hearing so we can conduct some discussion among the commission. And I'll kick things off here by simply outlining what I think, at least to my eyes and ears, sound like the issues that we need to work through. And that's the roofing material, the deck, second level deck at the southeast corner, the tree issue that was raised by Katie, as well as any concerns folks might have about the window replacement, not matching original windows. I didn't hear much questioning about the windows, but I did note that there was a concern expressed in the staff report. So those are the four issues that I saw and heard that I think make the most amount of sense to focus upon. With respect to the deck, the only thing I'll add there is the applicant has expressed a willingness to remove that second floor deck, which I think is more in line with our criteria. And so I'd be in favor of modifying the proposed motion to remove that deck from the southeast corner. I have said my piece. Anybody else like to speak about any of the issues?
Oh, I have a quick question. I don't remember which deck was he considering, the applicant considering on the side? Is it the one on top or the one just below?
I believe it's the one on top, closest to the front of the house.
Front of the house,
the
okay,
southeast corner.
thanks.
Yep, and protruding out a little bit further than the other one.
Matt, the one thing to clarify is if it is removed, what then it happens with the doors? Are they then replaced and built up with a wall?
Good point.
Originally, it looks like there was a window there. If you need to refer to the original configuration of the fenestration, it's on page 6 of the staff report.
Any other thoughts, commissioners?
So, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner DeBerry. Both of those balconies on the side bother me, just because, you know, they're prominent. I can handle the ones in the back. Also on the sunroom, the pictures indicate that originally when that room was built, they were divided light windows, and this shows just one single pane windows.
What photo?
Are you referring to this photograph?
That, and there's a picture on the Open Durham that shows it a little bit too. Just to do single pane in that space really jumps out at me as far as compatibility with the rest of the house.
Commissioner DeBerry, if the applicant were willing to install divided light glass in that front sunroom, as well as remove that one deck, second floor, southeast corner of the property, would that be enough to garner your support for the application?
I'd like to see both those forward decks removed. Fixing that sun porch would go, you know, a great way into getting me around to this. I really appreciate where he's coming from, though. I would not quibble about the windows. I think he's doing his darndest to make all this work. And, you know, he's going to end up having to do a bunch of structural work anyway. Sounds like he's going to replace most of the siding. So those decks are going to have to be worked around or removed anyway and put back. So I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say about those decks, but in general, I'm supportive of what he's doing and appreciate it.
This is Commissioner Johnson. I'm right there with you, Commissioner DeBerry. The decks are just they are incongruous with the landmark property. And I think, though I appreciate all of the work that the applicant is doing to this historic property, I think we have to keep in mind that we need to keep in mind to do as much as we can to maintain the historic character, look, and feel of the house. And it seems like the decks on the side are excessive, and they just do not fit with the historic building. Now I can deal with the decks at the rear and the stairs at the rear, and I think that can make for your emergency egress situations that may happen in case of an incident in the house. But I don't know if I could. I think it's a little bit too much, especially if we're taking it back to its original single family home use. What was the other thing? Yeah, I also agree with the sunroom, divided lights. I think we should go back to that again, in keeping with what the original historic look and feel was. And, you know, keep in mind, commissioners, that these landmark properties get up to 50%. What is it called? That's not a discount, up to 50%. What's it called?
A tax deferral.
Deferral, yes. Tax deferral on their property. And the point of that is to hopefully provide that financial incentives to maintain the historic character of the house. So we, you know, especially with landmarks, we want that historic look and feel to be to its utmost and highest as much as possible.
I assume he's going to get National Registered tax credits as well as the local tax deferrals. Is that not correct, Carla?
So, Mr. DeBerry, I think the applicant, and I should let him speak for himself on this if you want to reopen the hearing to hear from him. My understanding is from the applicant that he had sought them, but the windows prevented him from getting that tax credit. I did inquire with the person who reviews such applications at SHPO, and he did not recall. I don't think there was ever any formal application submitted, and it was maybe perhaps too long ago to remember any casual conversations about it. But you're welcome to open the public hearing to ask him further.
I'll reopen the public hearing for the limited purpose of getting clarification to that issue. Go ahead, Mr. Boltheis.
Would you restate the question, please?
Go ahead, Carla.
Sure. The question was, what inquiries or efforts have you made into obtaining historic tax credits for this project? Any past work you've done or new work that you're considering?
Okay, when I originally bought the home, I had a representative, I believe she works for, it's been 4 years now, I apologize, 432 or 421. It's an architectural design company, and she assists with historic tax credit paperwork. And
are you talking about 4/1 design?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's been like 4 years, and I walked the property with her, and she told me that there was not much of historic value to preserve on the inside of the home. She said the tile around the fireplace and two of the fireplaces was about it. So I didn't think that I would get any assistance from tax credits. I did have a budget of $700,000 for the remodeling of this home. And that includes the major permit that'll come later for the ADU and garage. You know, 135,000 of that was for the windows and the doors, and I've already spent that.
You ought to be able to apply. The roof should be covered. All the siding should be covered. All of those types of things. Some of the stabilization work you're going to do. The windows, they're not going to give you anything for, but going forward, National Register, you ought to be able to get some North Carolina state tax credits, and then the city, county, Carla, I really can't speak to what those look like, but I feel certain you could get a nice credit for the roof and siding and exterior work.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Just to clarify, from City County, he is already getting a 50% tax deferral on his real estate taxes. So whatever his tax bill would have been, if it weren't a landmark, that is cut in half for having the landmark status, but no further credits or deferrals are created for work actually done on it, on the property. That's just something he gets for it being designated a landmark.
Okay. You can help him find the right person at SHPO to talk about.
Yes, I've already provided that information when I was communicating with the previous applicant, Kate, he was referring to, but I'm happy to provide that again.
So I'm going to reclose the public hearing to resume discussion amongst the commission. We've heard from various commissioners about the 2 side decks on the second floor, as well as the windows, the glass at the front elevation enclosed sunroom. Any other perspectives on these or other issues from our other commissioners?
Carla, can you go to page 28 on the staff report, please? So I just want to make sure the decks we're all concerned about are replacing the image that you're currently showing, correct? Like that's the same elevation, right? That top left.
I think the middle one, the middle deck, as well as the one sort of in the top right quadrant of the first picture there. Yep.
Right. So if the applicant's willing to remove that front one, awesome. I guess for me, the middle one, I'm looking at like what's proposed versus what is there, and I'm okay with what he's proposing just because at least it's an incremental improvement over what's there now and bringing it more into conformity while not requiring him to get rid of a, opening that's currently there and already exists and is a door. So I guess, I mean, if the applicant is okay with removing it, great, but I'm also not going to hold it against him if he's like, well, I'm removing one of these decks, the other one, like I'm already going to have to replace one door that's already there. So I guess to me, it's like, it's a matter of incremental improvements to me, or they have a certain amount of value, even if you can't get it to like what we wish it would be. I'm just looking at this picture and that entire facade is so cut up right now that I feel like at least what he's proposing is an incremental improvement to have it less cut up than what I'm currently seeing there. Like I'm just looking at
And
the
as,
jumble of fenestration there.
And as Vice Chair Goolsbee had brought up, we would need to get some clarification on what fenestration, like if these were removed, what would replace the doors, and making sure that this matches the elevation drawing that he proposed as well. Or is he going to be putting in new windows here? Looks like these are 9/1.
Yeah.
Are they simulated divided light? I had asked for some close-ups of the windows, but it's a large scope of work, and we really wanted to get it on the agenda. So didn't have all of the details needed for the fine-tuned review. I apologize for that.
This is Commissioner Fieselman. I can get behind either deck proposal that we're talking about here, which is remove the one on the right in the photo that we're looking at right now, or both of them. Either is fine by me. And I can get behind the sunroom window things you're suggesting, Tad. I guess big picture, it feels, I get the financial constraints, and I feel sad to see slate roof go. And feel sad to know that there were already vinyl windows and we've got vinyl back in and coming back. And so I guess big picture, to the extent possible, to utilize tax credits or other financial incentives to keep some of the original material, like as much as the original material as possible. That's where my head is, big picture. But I get the constraints as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Fieselman. Anybody else?
I would like to go ahead and say that I'm okay with the simulated slate roof. I just prefer that we have more information and know that some due diligence was done to retain the original material as much as possible. But I don't have much of an issue with one using a simulated version of slate roof, as long as it still looks like slate. In the future, I would love more information and a good reason why, you know, the use of an alternative material. Also, do we need to see the window specs, window button specs to make a decision on this application?
It's interesting that you asked that question, Commissioner Johnson, because that was sort of at the top of my mind as we're discussing here, you know, potentially working with the applicant to see if he'd be willing to make some adjustments, both with these decks as well as with the glass at the enclosed porch, the front elevation. Is this the sort of thing where we might want to have a little bit more detail about what that glass might look like, what the fenestrations would look like at one or both of these two decks that may be removed? Are those the sorts of details that we can actually work through now, or is it the sort of thing where it might be both in the applicant's best interests and to afford us clarity to see if the applicant would be willing to continue this case until we can get that additional detail?
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department, if you'd be open to it, opening the public hearing to ask him more specifically about these window specs. I did ask the previous applicant for window specs, and we never received them. So I wanted to maybe get a photograph of them, or if he could even just describe them and just clarify whether they're triple grid with muntins on the inside between the glass and outside.
I'll reopen the public hearing for that purpose. Mr. Boltheis, I think you've been following along here. We've got a number of commissioners who may not be able to lend their full support to your proposal based on these two decks and based on the current single light glass feature in that enclosed space in the front elevation. So a couple of questions for you. Would you be willing to remove both of these side decks on the east elevation? If so, what might the fenestrations be replaced with? What would that glass feature? And similarly, if you're willing to consider making an adjustment to the glass in that enclosed space in the front elevation, what would you be willing to return it to? I'm not sure how many lights there were in that original picture or in that 2018 picture, but would you be willing to utilize glass that was more in keeping with that photograph?
What were you speaking of earlier when you said materials and muntins? What was that about?
Go ahead, Carla.
Yeah, sure. So one of the requirements is when you have a simulated divided light window. So when you have any sort of configuration, such as 9/1 that you have currently, or the 12/1 that was original, what is the sort of construction of that division of light? Is it what's called grills between the glass, where it's only the slats between the glass and there's no sort of profile on the exterior? Or is it triple grid where you have muntins? Muntins are the dividers on the inside of the glass and the outside, so it creates what they call shadow lines. And that gives the effect of a true divided light window, which was what was historically in place.
These windows have the dividers inside of the glass. They're dual pane, high energy, argon filled windows, and the dividers are inside of the glass.
Okay. So they are not triple grid.
If that is not triple grid, then they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, I was definitely wanting to make the home energy efficient, as well as bring it back to a sense, a place of beauty and prominence in the city. But, I do believe that from a global warming perspective, anything we can do to minimize the loss of heat. And I'm from California, so, we literally worry about radon in our homes because they're so airtight.
Yeah, so Renewal by Anderson, they do offer different versions. You could get the grill between the glass, or you can get the simulated divided light with triple grid. So that's an option that you have, and it looks like you chose one option over another, but this model of window comes.
Here's why that happened, Carla.
Okay.
It happened because I ordered the windows with no grids, just to match what was in the home when I bought the home. And then he brought me a piece of paper, he being the salesman from Anderson, that said, sign this piece of paper that says you acknowledge that you have no historic requirements that you have to match on this house. And I said, well, what does this mean? What are you talking about? I looked on the National Historic Registry requirements, and it said that I didn't have to have any certain type of window. Or do you know something I don't know? And he said, well, sometimes if the neighborhood has X number of slats, they like the homes with windows to have them as well. And I said, well, let me look around the neighborhood. And I did, and the majority of the homes had 9/0. And he said, I can add this in now, but I can't change the style of the window. I can only put them inside of the window because that's what we've already got being built for you. So apparently this guy knew something I didn't, and he wanted to cover his butt.
So, Mr. Boltheis, let me ask you just a series of questions to try to sort of bring to a head some of the issues that have been discussed here amongst the commissioners. Let's start with that southeast balcony towards the front elevation, the one that protrudes out the most, and the one that you said that you would be willing to omit. If that remains the case, what would be your proposal for replacing the door that's currently located in the area of that deck?
I would frame the wall in and have a window that was elevated from the floorboards to code for, height requirements, have it open from bottom to top, and then attempt, to match the windows that are on the back side of that second story so that it looks the same from the street.
And would matching be 9/0 in that case, or would it be?
I don't know what that window has in it. I can't tell from this photo.
Okay. Now let's talk about the second deck, the one in the middle of the picture that's currently up on the screen. There have been a number of commissioners who have expressed concerns about it. Is it possible, would you be willing to remove that deck as well? And if so, what would be your proposal for replacing that door?
It's ugly as sin. And the only reason I would have kept it is if you guys wanted me to keep it. There is some really neat old glass that's in that the side panels to that door there. So I would remove the door, but I'd like to have a larger window in there. Something maybe 18 inches off of the ground, and then maybe as high as it currently is. And then keep the side panels because, like I said, they're older glass and they've got some nice etching on them. But yes, I'd like to just keep that as like the windows on that side of the home. I don't believe any of them have on the second story. I'm trying to remember. I just don't. I'm sorry. I think that all of the windows on that side of the home are 9/1. I'm almost positive they are. I just don't know for a fact. But that one window where the door that I would put where the door is, I think it would probably look better if the entire thing were gridded.
And so would it be fair to presume, Mr. Boltheis, that you are willing to jettison that second deck in the middle of that elevation?
Yes, I like the other panel members' suggestion of having the fire escape on the back of the house. I think that I can arrange for the balcony on the second story to tie into the balcony on the first floor, and that would provide a secondary means of egress. So I liked her idea.
Great. That leaves us to the enclosed space in the front elevation. Would you be amenable to replacing that glass from what is currently depicted as single light to divided light?
How would you like that done? Like what Carla's suggesting, have them make them with the panels on the inside and outside of the glass?
I'll defer to Carla on that question.
That would be to salvage the existing units, and I don't know. I think he's right that you can't make them that way once they've been made. It would be, unless he knows something else about it, I think it would require new units, new door units, or I guess they're windows, floor to ceiling windows, to be able to make them a triple grid.
Would you describe these as 3/6?
These here?
Yeah.
These are, I mean, there's no, they're not double hung, and we only use the, number over number with a double hung configuration. These look like, French doors, except they're windows. They're probably fixed
Carla,
in place.
they're doors.
Oh, they are doors?
Yes.
Okay. So these
they
right
latch
here.
close at the top and the bottom.
Okay. So these are French doors here. And you would just count the lights, 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3. So there's 6 by 3, so 18 light, which gives a proportion that's similar to what was original here.
Mr.
like the
Boltheis,
individual grids.
Mr. Boltheis, would you be willing to make that enclosure, you know, 18 light French doors as opposed to what is currently depicted?
I really thought having doors that opened to a 3-foot drop was a bad idea.
Sorry, I thought you said they were doors.
They were doors. Don't you think that's a bad idea?
Oh, so they are not current. They're currently windows.
Currently, they're windows. They
So
were previously doors, and
Okay.
doors that opened up and had a 3-foot drop to me seemed like a bad idea.
So I think the question is then, would you be willing to change those to fixed windows that are divided light in the same configuration as these earlier doors?
I can speak to Anderson about what that would cost me. There are 8 panels there, and so they're large. I'm positive that each panel cost me around $4,000. So we're talking around $35,000 to do that. But let me ask them, please.
So thank you very much for all of that, Mr. Boltheis. You've been really great to work with here in trying to address our primary concerns. I'm going to reclose the public hearing and suggest to the commission that, you know, Mr. Boltheis is doing great work here. On the whole, I think all of us appreciate the effort and the expenditure to bring this house back to greatness and worthy of its landmark status. That being said, I think there are details that we have discussed that it would just be helpful to have more information before we make a vote on this proposal. It will be my suggestion, again, with the applicant's willingness, if he's willing, to continue this case likely for 2 months, because that's usually how long it takes to both get the additional information and put the case back on the calendar, so we can get some additional detail about what that east elevation would look like without those 2 decks, including the replacement fenestrations, as well as get some additional details here on what might happen with this enclosed space on the front elevation. Do any of the commissioners have any concerns about making that recommendation to our applicant at this time?
Matt, I would just add that if he's going to do some tweaking on that back double level porch, if he's going to add a staircase or something in there, that be included in the update.
Okay.
Because that's a substantial change to that rear, which it's on the rear I don't have a problem with, but if he's going to, you know, relocate the, you know, so the picture is he's going to fill in the gap between the 2 levels, have a staircase. There's a lot of work there. If you would just include that, it would make things easier, I think.
That's helpful. Thank you, Commissioner DeBerry. Anybody else? So, Mr. Boltheis, what I'm going to suggest to you is this, and I don't want you to think for a second that we are singling you out for special treatment. It has been my experience here over the last couple of years with applications that are otherwise worthy, but we might have questions about, rather than put the proposal as it currently exists to a vote and risk not having enough votes in support of it, getting clarity from the applicant, recommending getting clarity from the applicant on some of these issues of concern, so that we're in a better position in a couple months' time to complete our evaluation and sign off on what is being proposed. And I think what you've heard here from us today is a concern about those 2 decks and a desire to see them removed and for the fenestrations left behind to be replaced by windows, and to get details on that. As Commissioner DeBerry mentioned, we'd like to have some additional detail on what the rear stair would look like based on the removal of those 2 decks on the east facade. And we'd like to get a little more detail here on a proposal to potentially modify what is now the single light glass in that enclosed lobby space on the front elevation to something that is more reminiscent of the divided light glass that we saw in that picture from 2018. So it's our recommendation that we continue this case. I'm not going to put it to a vote, however, until we get your consent to continue it. It's obviously your right to have the proposal voted on now as it currently exists, I can't guarantee you're going to garner enough support for the proposal in light of the concerns that have been expressed. And so it's my recommendation that you consider seriously the invitation to provide us additional clarity and to continue the case until that clarity can be provided.
Chair Bouchard, this is Commissioner Goolsbee. I would add to that, if the applicant is willing, the research done in the slate roof, and if there's possibilities for tax credits to be able to see that restored.
Mr. Boltheiso, it's ultimately your decision about how to proceed.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the panel's recommendations and candor and patience with me, as I have never restored a home that was a historic landmark. I've lived in Durham now almost 20 years, and this home has caught my eye for almost 20 years. And when I was able to buy it, I was thrilled. I want this to be my forever home. I don't want to remodel it and sell it. I want to keep it. And as a result, I want to make sure that everything I do to this home is not just what I want, but that you, the city representatives, and I can come to an agreement where we are both getting what we would like. So I have no problem researching these questions for you and coming back in another 2 months. Would it be possible at that time for me to bring forward the other proposals with regards to landscaping and the other items that we want to include, so that I can have a full picture of what my scope of work will be?
Sure, I leave that to Carl in terms of whether or not those would need to be separate COAs and whether or not there'd be sufficient time to get them onto the August calendar.
Thank you very much.
And I probably need to check with our attorney. I don't know that you can add such a substantial scope to an existing application, but we'd welcome you to in a separate major COA, which the deadline for August, which this would be continued to, just passed, but we can work on on that depending on how far forward you are. We haven't actually had a pre-sub on the new. I've given some cursory guidance around the new accessory structures to Kate, but I haven't spoken with you directly about those. So we'd need to do a pre-sub meeting imminently, and hopefully you'd be able to get some elevations drawn pretty quickly as well.
I could.
Okay, and I'll work with my supervisor on making sure that we can accommodate the staff report review for August to be heard on the same date as this continuance.
Fabulous, thank you.
So, Mr. Bolthausen, am I correctly understanding that you are willing to have the commission vote on continuance for this application?
Yes, please.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. With that, I'll ask for a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Staff would recommend continuance of this application to the August 2nd HPC meeting date, and to address the issues that were brought up during this hearing.
Thank you very much. I will so move to continue case number COA 2200015, 101 West Markham Avenue, modifications and site work to the August 2nd Durham Historic Preservation Committee meeting, so that the applicant has sufficient time to address the issues that have been raised during today's evidentiary hearing.
Second.
Clerk Holmes, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approved.
Vice Chair Goolsbee,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Approved.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Mr. Bolthouse, thank you so much for all of your efforts to date, for your willingness to continue to work with us on this. I invite you to rely on Carla for any additional assistance you need before the next time you appear before us, and we look forward to seeing you in August.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Let us proceed to the next case on our agenda, which will be COA 22000022, 411 West Chapel Hill Street modifications. As Chris is working to get our applicant into our Zoom meeting, and before we hear from city staff, is there any one of our commissioners who would have a conflict of interest in hearing this case? Seeing and hearing none, let us proceed with the swearing in of anyone who plans to speak for this case.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Is that directed to me?
It is, sir.
Thank you, sir. I do.
And sir, is it Mr. Belladin? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, my name is Fred Belden. Good morning.
Great. Good morning to you as well. Mr. Belladin, do you also consent to this hearing proceeding this morning via this electronic remote platform?
I do.
Wonderful. Thank you. I believe we are prepared for a staff report. Nope. Yes. Yes, we are. I'm sorry.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 22000022. It's 411 West Chapel Hill Street. Modifications. The applicant is Fred Belladin of Clearscapes. The owner is 411 West Chapel Hill Street, LLC. It's located on the southeast corner of the intersection of West Chapel Hill Street and what is that? Sorry, my Duke Street. It's zoned downtown design core, and it's not in a historic district. It is the Mutual Plaza historic landmark. So the applicant is proposing to build two canopies. One is a freestanding one-story protective canopy with lighting around the base of the structure, and this is to catch falling debris. I'll let the applicant explain the condition of the current exterior cladding of the building. And then there's also a proposal to put in a second sort of sun canopy toward the rear side of the landmark structure. So I'd like to introduce the staff report into the record and invite Mr. Belladin to present his case.
Good morning, and thank you for your time today. In the interest of your time, as you've got a full agenda, I will be as brief as possible, and I'm happy to entertain any questions. So, as outlined in the staff report, this is a really unique building. The entire facade is actually also the structure of the building. So it is a structural precast system that is installed to create veer and deal trusses. The challenge that the current building owners are facing is that the building has had limited maintenance in its lifetime, including in particular, no maintenance or limited replacement of sealant joints. So what has occurred over time is there's been a great deal of water infiltration, both through the sealant joints and as the cream or the concrete skim coating or coating on the precast panels has eroded. That has resulted in a lot of rusting of the internal rebar to the precast concrete components, which is causing chunks of concrete to spall off, in addition to bits of the exposed aggregate falling over time. In combination, that's creating a distinct life safety hazard, as any morning that you go out there, you'll see various bits of debris on the plaza surrounding the building. The previous owner undertook a range of isolated spot repairs, some of which are already failing after less than 5 years. And the current owner has been doing their due diligence. We've had 3 building envelope forensic experts look at it, as well as 2 structural engineers and 2 different architects. So the challenge that we are facing is, even though that we are planning to do sealant joint replacement and to treat within the limits of the historic guidelines, the exterior facade as much as possible under minor work COAs, because of the extent of damage that has occurred, we are going to continue to have spalling on this facade for the foreseeable future. So in the interest of preserving the building, the proposal is to come back with this delicate steel canopy that wraps around the perimeter that, as Carl indicated, is intended to catch falling debris to protect pedestrians as they move around and enter and exit the building. In parallel with that, we're proposing a small sunshade canopy out on the rear plaza, which is adjacent to the former fountain or pool that has been removed. In terms of the information that was presented, different from the application, I direct you to the final page of the staff report, which includes 2 updated renderings, which shows this information in a little more detail. So I'm happy to continue in more detail, or I'm happy to take questions, again, out of respect for y'all's time and your full agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belladin. I will go ahead and invite my fellow commissioners to ask any questions they might have. Anybody with questions?
Yeah, to preserve the exterior of the building, to repair that, to keep the chunks from falling off of the exterior of the building. Is there something that can be done to stop that? Is there a sealant that can be put on that lasts more than 5 years?
That's a great question. We face both a technical challenge and a historic best practices challenge. So typically, because this is exposed aggregate concrete, the National Park Service guidelines and your local guidelines discourage, if not prohibit, coating the building. Although, as I mentioned, we do have 3 forensic experts looking at it. So we are currently assessing a range of coatings that we may come back to you with to consider in the future. But the primary challenge that we face is, even if in an ideal world we were to coat and protect the building to stop all infiltration from this point forward, the degree of rust and damage that already exists is going to lead to continued spalling for the foreseeable future. So the reason for the canopy is to protect against that. In other words, we've had the building sounded, but there's so much rust that currently exists that's hidden inside of these panels that we can't identify all of it, and it will continue to rust and manifest in spalling as we move ahead. Did that answer your question adequately?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Canopy is a good idea.
Thank you both for that. Any other commissioners with questions for our applicant today?
Yes, this is Commissioner Goolsby. I'm looking at the section on page 33 of the canopy that will surround the perimeter. And it appears that the kind of main foundational element you're going to tie into the existing structure of that. So no additional structure is needed foundationally, if you will.
Yes, so this entire building, Andy, is built on an elevated plaza. So obviously, with the challenges with the existing facade, we are trying to avoid connecting to that existing facade in any way, shape, or form. So we've done some careful structural analysis with the column spacing and layout to try to work with the existing precast concrete tees of that plaza. So this will be a cantilevered steel canopy structure that will not connect to the vertical building structure.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I have not studied your elevations well enough, but just in terms of placement of columns, are they, say, in alignment or in configuration that speaks to the existing building?
They are. They're based on at some point, the previous owner in the last 10 years installed a new storefront system around the perimeter base of the building, and the column placement relates to that storefront infill.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
I have one, one question concerning the exposed concrete. Has the forensic professionals determined when the building will be no longer safe to occupy because the spalling will continue to happen?
So great question, Ms. Johnson. In theory, obviously, if it continues to deteriorate, we could reach the point where it impacts the structure. We are not at that point today. And with the actions currently taken, all of the structural engineers that have looked at it are confident that the building is not in danger of collapse. It's more the practical life safety concern of the pieces falling off the building. But our goal obviously is to preserve this important landmark for the long term, which is why we may come back to you at a future date with some additional information for potential facade treatments as that becomes available.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Goolsby again. I've got one more question. It's a little bit out of left field. How is this building maintained in terms of this canopy is going to go around? Is it maintained from the roof, or will they be setting up scaffold? Or I guess thinking about long terms, is the canopy going to be in the way of future maintenance to the building?
We've been working with the contractors that currently maintain the building. And while there is some trade-off there, Andy, it's a great question. The consensus is that we are able to maintain the building with drop scaffolds over time to allow this canopy. The single biggest concern right now, obviously, is any potential injury or worse to the building occupants and visitors.
Okay, thank you.
So the supporting structure of this canopy appears to be that sort of dark bronze metal.
Yes, sir.
The storefront, when it was put in, is brushed aluminum. The looks like the framing of the windows on the second floor that was part of that sort of atrium are brushed aluminum, and then the rest of the building all appears to have the bronze. What's the thinking behind what color you're using and what color was used in the past?
That's a great question. I cannot speak to the rationale for the color choice by the previous owner, as we were not involved with the building at that point in time. But the historic building is all comprised of dark bronze elements. So we are, one, respecting the color palette of that existing building. And two, with the dark bronze color, that canopy will tend to recede more visually, as opposed to if it were brushed aluminum, it would catch light and we believe call more attention to itself.
Commissioner DeBerry, any other questions?
Not, not for this COA, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask if there is anybody here today who intends to speak against this application. Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public hearing for the purpose of opening up the conversation amongst commissioners. Is there anyone who would like to lead us off? Go ahead, Commissioner Hamilton.
So I have mixed feelings about this. I'm sure the rest of the commission does as well. This was literally landmarked a year ago. And come to find out the facade is crumbling, which is kind of disappointing a year after giving landmark status to here. But hopefully those tax breaks they're getting will help them maintain this facade further. But I do want to mention that I do appreciate some of the moves that are being made, and that it's not just, they didn't just go, okay, life safety, we're going to throw up a walkway. They, integrated grazing of the columns to kind of accentuate the architectural features that make this NC Mutual building what it is and everything else. So, a little bit of lemons out of lemon, or lemonade out of lemons there, as our last applicant said. So I do appreciate some of the moves that have been made to try to make this accentuate the existing building and not just be a tacked on element at the bottom for life safety. So I'll say that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Anybody else? Seeing and hearing no other comments, I will ask for a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department, staff would recommend approval of the application.
Thank you very much. Carla, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Fieselman.
The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in case COA 2200022411 West Chapel Hill Street modifications, the applicant is proposing modifications to a landmark property, a freestanding protective canopy of perforated metal sheets and 6-inch square steel tube columns, all painted with a dark bronze finish, will be installed around the perimeter base of the primary structure. The canopy will measure 10 feet 2 inches in height, aligned with the first floor in the building's lowest concrete beams, and 6 feet in depth. Bar lighting will be installed along the underside of the canopy, and 8 signs will be installed at the outer edge of the canopy. 4 building signs at 18 inches in height and 4 tenant signs at 12 inches in height, one each per building face. A freestanding shade canopy measuring 12 feet 2 inches in height and 22 inches in length and width will be centered behind the outline. Is that right? 22 inches in length, or should it be 22 feet?
22 feet sounds more appropriate. Sorry.
Okay. 22 feet in length and width will be centered behind the outline of the former reflecting pool and along the building's east elevation. A fully glazed aluminum storefront door will be installed with an existing storefront infill glazing at the far left of the rear south elevation, and column uplighting fixtures will be installed around the building perimeter to accentuate the 2 center vertical elements along each elevation. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report, and the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 2200022411 West Chapel Hill Street modifications with the following conditions. 1, the improvement shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at this commission hearing and attached to the COA. 2, the improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies, and the applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals relating to building construction, site work, and work in the right of way. And 3, a compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein.
Second.
Before we have a roll call vote on this, I want to make sure that dimensionally we've got the right information in the motion. I know Commissioner Fieselman read and it was interpreted to read a freestanding shade canopy measuring 12 feet 2 inches in height and 22 feet in length and width will be centered behind the outline of a former reflecting pool along the building's east elevation. I'm wondering if there's a dimension that's missing there with respect to the length and width.
I think it's 22 feet square. Is that correct, Mr. Belladin?
Sorry. Yes, I wanted to double check and make sure I did not misspeak. That is correct.
And so instead of 22 inches in length and width, it should be 22 inches square, Carla?
It's 22 feet.
22
so
feet.
It can be.
Sorry.
So you could say it as in length and width or square, whichever way you
Okay.
want to say it.
Okay. It should be 22 feet in length and 22 feet in width.
And yes, Commissioner Fieselman read it that way, so I think it's
Okay.
fine.
And I'm sorry for confusing the situation.
No problem. I mean, I confused it in the first place.
Commissioner Holmes, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved?
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Approve.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
Approved.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Approved. Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Approved.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Belladin, thank you very much for your presentation and for working with us on this proposal, and good luck.
Thank you to the commission for your time and consideration, and good luck with the rest of your agenda.
Thanks
Take
so
care,
much.
everyone.
With that, I will exercise the chair's prerogative and call for a brief recess. If we could try to be back here at 10:40, as we have two important cases left on our agenda today. See you shortly.
We'll be returning in about 1 minute. As we prepare to return, I'm going to start bringing anyone who has signed up for the next case in with the rest of the commission. Thank you.
As folks are returning from our recess, I would ask that you turn your cameras on so we know that you are back.
Chair, this is Chris Peterson. I'm just waiting for Edwin Harris, Joshua Frey, and Samantha Powell to join us, and we should be ready to go.
Dawn, are you back?
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to confirm that Samantha Powell-Jones, she is participating as an attendee. She won't be speaking for our case.
Okay. Chris, does it appear that we have everyone then who plans to speak?
Correct. Everyone who's here, with the exception of Ms. Powell, Ms. Kirkland mentioned, yeah, everyone else is in.
And so we're waiting for Vice Chair Goolsby to return. Okay, Vice Chair Goolsby has returned. I believe we are ready to proceed with the next case on our agenda, which is COA 22-00026, 1710 to 1712 Fayetteville Street, new construction. Before we hear from staff, is there any one of our commissioners who may have a conflict of interest in hearing this case? Commissioner Calhoun has already spoken on the record about her conflict. Is there anybody else with a conflict of interest in hearing this case? I will therefore move to recuse Commissioner Calhoun from hearing this case based on the information she provided us earlier this morning that she is employed by the university. May I have a second?
Commissioner Goolsby, second.
All right, we have seconds from both Vice Chair Goolsby and from Commissioner Hamilton. If we can have a roll call vote on the motion to recuse Commissioner Calhoun.
All right, Chair Bouchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Fieselman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Goolsby,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
And Clerk Holmes, if we could go ahead and administer the oath to our participants. I would ask that you allow me, after the oath is read, to just say your name so that we can just do it in an orderly fashion.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth, by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
Ms. Kirkland?
I do.
Mr. Davis?
Eric Davis, I do.
And Mr. Fry?
Josh Fry, I do.
Mr. Harris?
I do.
Wonderful. And in the same order, do each of you consent to this evidentiary hearing proceeding on this remote electronic platform? Ms. Kirkland?
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Fry,
Yes.
and Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Thank you all so much. We can now proceed with a staff report. Carla.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 22-00026, 1710 to 1712 Fayetteville Street, new construction. The applicant is Brittany Eaker Kirkland of Evoke Studio Architecture. The owner is the state of North Carolina. It's zoned urban and, University and College 2 and residential urban 5. It's located on the northwest corner of the intersection of Fayetteville Street and East Lawson Street. And it's 2 non-contributing parcels in the Fayetteville Street Historic District. There is a third parcel on the rear that's actually not in the district. So the applicant is proposing to build this new primary structure on the 3 parcels. And this includes the removal of 2 canopy trees at the center of the site and replacement with 16 new canopy trees and 9 new street trees. I'd like to introduce the staff report into the record and invite Ms. Kirkland and her colleagues to present their case. And feel free to call out page numbers and I'll jump to where you need in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. We are, as Carla introduced, we're working on a project for North Carolina Central University that's right at the northwest corner of campus along Fayetteville Street. And we're currently in the process of going through the processes with the city to recombine those parcels and rezone so that the entirety of the 3 parcels would be UC2. So the parcel that's highlighted here is the northmost of the Fayetteville Street parcels. The one immediately south is also in the historic district. And then the trapezoidal parcel across the alleyway is the 3rd parcel in our site. We've already completed the alleyway abandonment process, so the additional sliver of land that you see there is part of our project site. So the intent with our project has been to create a 5,000 or just under 5,000 square foot student collaborative learning and research center. This is a 24/7 facility and based on the master plan of North Carolina Central University and the needs of the university to have a student activity area in this northern part of campus. We have been working on a variety of pathways of developing this, but to catch you up on the program of what's happening here, it is a 24/7 facility that is open to students. And we've been working with the university to ensure that it is safe and secure and also respectful of the neighborhood. So through our design process, we have been striving to bridge the 2 contexts. So we're right at that hinge point of a neighborhood context, which obviously includes the historic district. And then we're also part of NCCU's campus context by constructing anything on these parcels. So we're trying to find the appropriate balance of respect to the neighborhood and respect to the campus context. And the way we've done that is to ensure that the scale of the building is appropriate to the residential context. It's not a massive structure. It is a single-story structure that the overall height of which is in keeping with the 2-story residences of the neighborhood and in the historic district. We also made sure that the footprint of the building was not excessively oversized. It is an appropriate scale to provide the program needed by the university, but we're only occupying a portion of the site. We're not trying to max out and create a building that is out of scale with the neighborhood in that way. So as you're looking along Fayetteville, the building facade is wider than your average house, but it is variegated in terms of its elevational articulation so that we can respect the context of that street edge. We're also holding the block face with our porch, and we created this porch as a nice bridge as well. The porch itself is a slightly elevated nod to the residential porch context that's throughout the neighborhood. but it is also appropriately scaled for the size of the building and the fact that multiple students would be utilizing it rather than the residential context of minimal users at a given time. So, and as you can see here, the height of the building is shown with the residences to the right-hand side of the page, which is north, and the left-hand side of the page is the roughened dorm that is part of Central's campus and is also a non-contributing structure in this historic district. So I'm trying to make sure I touch on the high points of everything. I think one other thing, you know, we've gone through neighborhood briefings with local neighbors of the block along Lawson and Fayetteville and tried to make sure that we were being appropriately responsive to the neighborhood. We're actually doing stormwater improvements as part of this project to ensure that we are creating a good interface with the neighborhood surrounding us. And we're trying to do the same with the historic context and create a facade that works within the historic district as well as possible with a building that, as you can see, is not a residential structure. I believe I have touched on our overall summary of our intent with the project. And if there's anything that I did not review, I'm happy to clarify, but try to keep it brief so that we can have time for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkland. Any of the other participants want to add to anything Ms. Kirkland has presented? Okay, hearing from nobody, I will ask my fellow commissioners to provide any questions they might have. Go ahead, Commissioner Hamilton.
Commissioner Hamilton, could you really briefly walk through your lighting plan and where those Bega pull top lights are, just where all the different lights are going? I don't really see the key legend for the lighting, so I'd like to have that run through, please.
Absolutely. I'll speak to generally and what we're doing with the building lighting, and then I'll ask Eric Davis, who's sitting next to me, to chime in for some of the site lighting as well. What we have attempted to do with the overall has been to walk the line between campus security, safety with lighting, but then also ensuring that we're not overly lighting the neighborhood. So under the canopy that is on the, I'm sorry, minimize this window. The canopy that is to the right-hand side of your page, it's along Fayetteville. There's a canopy over that exterior seating area that you see. That has downlights only, so that we're illuminating that covered area to ensure that there is a safe area for students if they're out there in the dusk or evening times. There are also security cameras so that campus security is well maintained. And then that only exists on the Fayetteville side of the building, as well as wrapping around the Lawson side where the main entry is. So we did not place any lighting that is for student use to the north side to ensure that we're not having too much lighting spillover that way. We have placed our bollards and our pole lights along, I believe it's the south and then the west side of the parking area. And that is for security along the sidewalks and then along the parking. There are some pole lights along Fayetteville as well for street lighting, which you can see called out with the circle there on the plan. They're just to the west of the 3 street trees. And so what we've specified are pole lights that are utilized elsewhere on Central's campus. And Eric, I don't know if you have other details on those that you would like to share.
Sure. The lighting, we have 2 different types of exterior lighting fixtures that Brittany spoke of. We have a larger, taller lighting fixture that is only focused on the parking area that provides safety and lighting for visitors to the building. And we also have, as Brittany spoke of, the pedestrian pole fixture that is along Fayetteville and as well in Lawson.
So the Bega round top pole fixtures, only those 3 on Plan East. Okay. And I just want to make sure. So were all of those already used on the campus? So they're all nearby already?
To the best of my understanding, Commissioner Ms. Hamilton, yes.
Okay. And then can I just follow up? Same thing with those bike racks and the trash. Is that also campus standards?
Yes, we're trying to follow the campus standard for those as well.
Okay. So then they're consistent when they bring parcels. Okay. Well, I will stop asking questions about the other commissioners.
Thank you.
Brittany, this is Andy Goolsby. What is the setback that you're using on the north side of the property? So, you know, there's the house to the north. How far are you off of that north property line and to the building itself, not necessarily the walkway and stairs?
Sure, yeah, so the, I think, Carla, there is a site plan that shows the
163. L163.
L163. It is.
Yeah, if you have a PDF page number, that will.
It is after the floor plan. I printed it out, so I'm trying to find the right number. So it's after that one.
We're getting there. Sorry about
Getting
that.
there. I think it's one more.
37.
37.
Yes, so thanks, Andy, for pointing this out. I think we are at, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, we're at 20 feet to the property line, and the adjacent house is very near to the property line. Mm-hmm. So I would say it is within 5 feet of our property line where the corner of that house exists. Mm-hmm. So we are 20 feet away to the building edge. And as you can see from the planting plan, we've been ensuring that we have a dense buffer there for that, the transition zone between the two zonings.
Is that a buffer required from zoning?
Yes, yes, that's the UDO requirement for the density of the buffer, and where we have gone down any less than the 20 feet, you'll see it's a little bit more densely planted to comply.
Okay. And then my second question is, I think I understand from your elevations, when we're talking about building height, the 14 feet, we're talking about the flat roof piece, but the screen is a couple feet more than that. Looks like at its highest, it was 8 feet taller than the building height. And I know you have an average height of about 21 feet. Yes. I'm looking at sheet 27 and the lower right-hand elevation, the east elevation.
Yeah, so that 21.5 feet was taken from our average grade to the midpoint of the slope up. And at its highest is also one of the lower points of the site. So it's measuring a little bit taller in that sense. See if I can find the right dimension. Yeah, you can see the roof line there, that is the roof walking surface. So then the parapet is 2 feet above that. So we have 16 feet to the top of the parapet. And then the additional, there's a 5 foot slope essentially from the low side of the canopy up to the high side of the canopy. So if we're at 21 feet in the midpoint, then we would be 2.5 feet taller at the peak.
Okay, all right, that helps me. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's all I have.
I had the same question as Commissioner Goolsby regarding the north elevation, but I just want to be clear because as I'm looking at page A14, is that canopy roof over the buffer? Does it cover the buffer or is it inside of the buffer?
On the north edge of the canopy?
Yes.
Yes, Okay, so the canopy projects out from the building on the east side towards Fayetteville and the south side towards Lawson only. It stops along the same line as the building enclosure in plan on the north side, so it does not project towards the home to the north.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions?
Out of curiosity, what are y'all doing with stormwater on this site?
So stormwater on the site, would you mind flipping to the plan, Carla? I think if you go to the grading plan, I think the grading plan, I'm sorry, it's like 32. That'll work. So the building roof line, we have stormwater coming out of the building through internal roof drain leaders on the southeast and southwest corners that are piped into the stormwater system. On the north side of the building, we have some scupper downspout systems that also are piped into the stormwater system. And then all of that is collected to the plant south. At one point, we were trying to do more on-site retention, and then that became an effort that was not going to work either from aesthetics or from practicality. So what we're doing now is everything is going to be tied into the stormwater main that is in Lawson Street. And we are doing downstream stormwater improvements to the line all the way along Lawson Street. So currently the stormwater infrastructure does not come to our site. So we're tearing it all out down to the adjacent perpendicular street that I've suddenly forgotten the name of. And we'll replace with an appropriately sized main. I think the main is currently only 12 inches. So we're going to upsize that line all the way down Lawson and to the major inlet that's on the perpendicular street off of Lawson to the west. Concord. Thank you, Eric.
Oh, the benefits of being a university, I guess. All right, well, good to know. I was just like, where is this possibly going?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of existing flooding issues in this area, and that was a thing that came up as a recurrent theme in our neighborhood meetings. And so, you know, we were trying to not only make the stormwater work for our site, but it's also going to fix those flooding issues for the neighborhood. Currently, the nearest stormwater inlet is halfway down Lawson between Fayetteville and what was it again? Concord. Thank you, Eric. So between Fayetteville and Concord, which is the full width of the Lawson dorm, there's only one inlet that's midway down the street. So all of the adjacent residences that had any kind of slope or basement level, they would flood every time it would rain. And so there really was no capacity for the stormwater. So therefore, in order to have our building function properly and not negatively impact anything, we have taken that on as part of the project to effectively work with the neighborhood in a positive direction.
Okay. And then Carla, I guess the question I would have, that sounds like some stuff in the right of way. Is that included in this?
When there are just regular repairs or things that are like don't impact visually, then no COA would be required. But if there's anything that would impact visually the right of way, we should include that, whether it would be, and I assume we could include it in the same application.
Okay.
I think the only right of way work we're doing is along Lawson. I'm not sure if that matters in terms of the Fayetteville parcels being the historic district and the Lawson parcel not. Most of that invasiveness is going to be along Lawson and outside of the district. We tried to keep any utilities that you might see are beyond as well, and they're well screened and hidden.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, any additional questions for our applicant? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask if there is anybody else present here during our evidentiary hearing who would like to speak for or against this case. Seeing and hearing from nobody, I will now close the public hearing and invite discussion amongst the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so the irony is not lost on me that the architects have tried to make this building fit into the neighborhood, both in terms of character and size and setbacks and all of those types of things. When it was not too long ago that this commission was approached by the university to tear down a historic bungalow on this corner. Not too dissimilar in size to the building that's being built, but is a pattern of the university to remove historic elements of its community from the historic district to build new structures without any regard to trying to reuse old structures. It's disappointing. It has nothing to do with the current architects and the current folks that are here. They inherited an empty lot. I get that. But the continuing disregard by the university using state funds to degrade the historic district is sad, and I just would like to have that on the record.
Thank you, Commissioner DeBerry. Any other commissioners? Seeing and hearing from nobody else, I will request a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. I am taken a bit back by the screening, the sunshade and its form, but overall, because it's perforated and not it's not an opaque feature, staff would recommend approval of the application.
Carla, on that point, is there any of our criteria that you're particularly concerned about with respect to the sunshade?
Roof form, compatibility of roof form, which technically the roof form is a flat roof form, and that's sort of like a secondary roof form.
Okay. But your recommendation is approval of the application?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Commissioner Goldberg, a motion to approve. The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in the case COA 22-00026, 1710 and 1712 Fayetteville Street new construction, the applicant is proposing to construct a new primary structure on two non-contributing parcels. The new structure will measure 21.5 feet. I'm going to add average in height, 58 feet in width, and 29 to 36 feet setback along the primary street face. The structure will be constructed with red brick, dark metal trim, storefront glazing, a low slope membrane roof with 16-inch tall roof parapets, and a perforated metal shade screen and canopy. The porch will be constructed of concrete and framed with brick seat walls. Lighting will consist of 25 units, 4 feet in length of linear downlighting at 750 lumens per foot within the porch canopy, as well as pathway bollards and a pedestrian pole light along Fayetteville Street. An air handler measuring 8 feet in height will be located on the roof, set back 52 feet from the east parapet and 10 feet from the north parapet. 2 black walnut trees will be removed from the center of the site and replaced with 16 canopy trees at least 12 feet tall at planting, 25 understory trees, and 9 street trees. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report, and the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 2200026, 1710 and 1712 Fayetteville Street, new construction, with the following conditions. Approval is contingent on approval of the level 4 administrative site plan D 2200065. Second, the improvements shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at this commission hearing and attached to this COA. 3, the improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies. The applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals relating to building construction, site work, and work in the right of way. And 4, a compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein.
Second. Clerk Holmes, roll call vote, please.
All right. Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Commissioner Fieselman.
I believe Commissioner Fieselman needed to step away.
Okay. Vice Chair Goolsby,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Approved.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all very much for your time today, for your presentation and remarks, and good luck with your project.
Hey,
Thank you.
Andy,
Thank you.
Thank you.
how bright is 750 lumens per foot? That sounds crazy bright, but I'm a landscape architect and I don't do the maths on the lumens. I just flip candles.
It's not. I don't think it's that bad. When we are doing interior, we're sometimes we'll do 500 lumens. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay. All right, cool. I approved, but I was like, I don't know what that means.
Again, thank you, everybody. While Chris Peterson is bringing in our participants for our final evidentiary hearing today, I'll go ahead and announce that we are proceeding with case COA 2200027, 1106 Alabama Avenue modifications. Before we hear from staff, is there any one of our commissioners who may have a conflict of interest in hearing this case? Seeing and hearing from nobody, let us proceed with the swearing in of anyone who plans to speak for this case.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the public hearing proceedings for today's case, the truth by your own knowledge or by information and belief?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Wilson?
Roger Wilson, I do.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Fellows?
I do.
And Ms. Fellows, could you please turn your camera on? Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask each of you, and I'll ask you in turn, if you agree to, rather consent to this evidentiary hearing proceeding on this remote virtual platform, starting with Mr. Parker.
David Parker, I do.
Mr. Wilson.
Fletcher Wilson, I do.
And Ms. Fellows.
Jane Fellows, I do.
Thank you so much. Let us now proceed with a staff report.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. This is case COA 2200027, 1106 Alabama Avenue, modifications and some site work. The applicant is Fletcher Wilson of Riverbank Construction. The owners are David Parker and Kelly Parker. It's located on the east side of Alabama Avenue between Englewood Avenue and Westcliff Boulevard, zoned residential suburban 8, and it's a contributing structure in the Watts-Hillendale Historic District. The applicant is proposing to modify 2 original porches. One of those will be fully enclosed with new windows and doors, and the other will have changes to the stoop area. And then there's also going to be the installation of a new patio with raised planters and a fire pit. I'd like to introduce the staff report into the record and invite Mr. Wilson and Mr. Parker to present their case.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hey, good morning. I am David Parker, and I'm the applicant here, the homeowner, and also general contractor. So the story of our north side porch and unsightly space that you see in the application photos, the patio area dates back to a major renovation project that we did in 2011 that came before the commission in December of 2010. It was a major undertaking, even as a builder with a 2-year-old and a newborn at the time, and living in a temporary rental home, and costs and timeline ballooned as it often does with these types of projects. And I can assure you those things are oftentimes worse when it's the builder's personal endeavor. But we did what we could to make the side porch usable. But I remember it remaining unfinished and closed off even during the Preservation Durham home tour we hosted in 2012, just prior to moving in. While we did finally turn the screen porch into a cleaned up and cozy outdoor spot, the patio area has remained underutilized and an embarrassing project on my to-do list now for a decade. So fast forward a decade, and we have a 2-year-old. Our 2-year-old is somehow not now almost 13, and like many folks experienced during COVID, the burden suddenly placed on our home stretched well beyond growing kids. It became our school and church and office and music studio and much more. And so in hopes of some relief, but averse to consideration of moving from the house and neighborhood that we love, my wife Kelly and I started brainstorming ideas for better leveraging areas in and around our home. And so already under roof, thus not requiring alterations to the form of the house, already possessing multiple non-original materials like the floor system and the flooring and the ceiling, and conveniently adjacent to the long neglected future patio area, which provides an opportunity to create an intimate outdoor setting like we currently experience on our porch. The north porch became our resounding favorite potential solution, and we were compelled to go for it. So the idea of enclosing this porch did not come without thoughtful consideration and certainly some wrestle. But we feel like the application that we've submitted and that we're talking about today addresses our primary concern throughout this journey, which is honoring the historic character and integrity of our home. And it's my hope that this was evident to each of you as you studied the proposal, and that ultimately you'll allow us to make these improvements to our home. So obviously there's a bunch of details in the application, and I know that you all have had plenty of time to take a look at it, so I won't belabor it by way of explaining all of it, but we'll open it up to any questions and comments.
Thanks so much, Mr. Parker. Is there anything that Mr. Wilson or Ms. Fellows would like to add before we open up the floor to questions?
No, thank you.
I am the neighbor to the Parkers, and this addition is the side of the house, which is just a few feet from my side entrance to my house. Nothing that they have done to this house, as you can see from the before and afters, has been anything but an improvement. And I am very much in favor of them having this opportunity to increase their space, to improve their patio area, and to remain in the neighborhood. I was broken into several times prior to their moving in, and have really appreciated having a beautiful home and such good neighbors nearby, as this problem has resolved as a result.
Thank you very much for that testimony, Ms. Fellows. I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to questions from the commissioners. Commissioner DeBerry, oh, you had your microphone off for a second, or rather your mute button off for a second, but now it's back on. Any of our other commissioners? Questions for our applicant today? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask if there is anybody else present in this evidentiary hearing who would like to speak for or against the application. Seeing and hearing from nobody else, I will close the public hearing to invite discussion amongst the commissioners. Is there anyone who would like to comment? Seeing and hearing from none of my fellow commissioners, I will ask if there is a staff recommendation.
Carla Rosenberg, Planning Department. Staff would recommend approval of the application.
Thank you so much. Do we have a motion?
I can do it. 1 second.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Scroll down here. Okay. The Durham Historic Preservation Commission finds that in the case of COA 22-00027, 1106 Alabama Avenue, addition, modifications, and site work, the applicant is proposing an addition, modifications, and site work to a contributing structure. A side porch will be enclosed, its interior cedar shakes and wood decking removed, and the floor height raised 4 inches. Custom milled simulated divided light wood windows and doors will be fitted into the original openings. A rear stoop that is not original will be removed and replaced with a new bluestone capped red brick stoop measuring 4 feet square with 4 matching steps leading to grade on either side of it. The bluestone patio will be installed between the porches surrounded by red brick walls and planter boxes. Therefore, the conclusion of law is that the proposed addition and alterations are consistent with the historic character and qualities of the historic district and are consistent with the historic properties local review criteria, specifically those listed in the staff report, and the Durham Historic Preservation Commission approves the certificate of appropriateness for case COA 22-00027. 1106 Alabama Avenue, addition, modifications, and site work with the following conditions. 1, the improvements shall be substantially consistent with the plans and testimony presented to the commission at the commission hearing and attached to the COA. 2, the improvements may require additional approvals from other city or county departments or state or local agencies. The applicant is responsible for obtaining all required approvals relating to building construction, site work, and work in the right of way. And 3, the compliance inspection shall be performed immediately upon completion of the work approved herein. May I have a second?
Second, Goolsby.
Thank you, Vice Chair Goolsby. Before we submit this to a roll call vote and to make sure that we are following our procedural requirements to the letter, I would ask Commissioner Fieselman if she had any opportunity to participate during that hearing.
I did not, and I assume I should not vote for that reason. Is that correct, Matt?
I appreciate that candor, and I do want to ask Mr. O'Toole for an advisory opinion on that
I
matter.
would agree with Ms. Fieselman that she should not vote on this case.
Okay.
Apologies, I had an urgent call I had to take, but I'm glad to be back.
Thank you both for that. Let's go ahead and move forward with our roll call vote. Clerk Holmes.
All right, Chair Bouchard,
Approved.
Commissioner Johnson,
Approved.
Vice Chair Goldsby,
Approved.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Approved.
Commissioner DeBerry,
Approved.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Approved.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank
you,
you
guys.
all very much. Mr. Parker, what a gorgeous house. And good luck with this next step.
Well, thank you so much. I have a very patient wife. 10 years of a gravel patio, and the dream is finally coming true. So thank you.
Terrific. Good luck. Commissioners, that is the last hearing on our agenda today. We have a couple of matters of old business, new business. First, old business newsletter.
Yes, this was something that I brought up a couple months ago. We've had some pretty packed agendas lately, and so luckily we have the opportunity to talk now. Some things to decide would be a theme, some special projects that we might want to highlight, and then who would be interested in volunteering for copy and layout.
I can do the layout since it's already in my computer.
Woohoo! Thank you, Katie.
We're only doing one thing.
Well, I suppose we could do multiple themes if it's not.
Well,
what do you have in mind?
Well, no, the reason I asked, this isn't an architectural related theme, but it's procedural. And I'm wondering if we should do something or highlight somehow the issue of these, what do you call it? We call them when people do work before they get it approved.
Oh, retroactive?
Yeah, retroactive applications. I think there are implications. I think we just don't, we don't have any in place. I don't know. I'm just wondering if we should do some more explaining to help people to understand.
Understand which part of it to
Well,
like what
yeah, I don't know what the consequences are. I don't know if we've ever put them in place. I know that there should be.
Yes, there are. So we basically double the application fee, which.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which the application fee is actually a portion of the total amount due, but yeah, whatever the application fee is, we double it.
It's doubled. Okay. So I'm wondering if we should just have a small section, just kind of reminding people. But I also wanted to ask, and this is off from the news, well, somewhat of the newsletter topic. How many, we send them out twice a year, right?
The newsletters only go once.
Oh, once a year. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because the first applicant didn't know, and I think he owned the property 2 years. So I wasn't sure. And I'm wondering if a separate letter should go out to landmark owners just to say, hey, you have a landmark. In my opinion, because they get this tax deferral, they should be put on a higher standard. And you're getting help, financial help to take care of this house while others aren't. So I'm wondering if we should do twice a year and then send a special letter out to landmark owners, just letting them know, hey, you have here's some information about the tax deferral. Make sure you're getting that. If you're not, and this is what it's for, it's an incentive for you to continue to take care of this property in a way that serves the public.
So a second newsletter specifically targeting landmarks as a
it doesn't It may not have to be a newsletter. It could be a postcard.
Okay.
It could be a letter or just something separate for the landmark owners, just to make sure.
Like when they get their tax bill, they can also
around that time.
Like your tax bill is half of what it should be because.
Which is July, thereabouts, right? And then it's due.
Yeah, so about next month. Yeah, we can whip something up.
Sure.
Just a couple of thoughts. This is just more in the vein of brainstorming than anything else. I mean, ADUs tend to or seem to be kind of a hot issue. Is there a ADU that we've approved that is interesting? It has now been built and is kind of interesting and sort of speaks to sort of what we would consider to be best practices for ADUs. That's one idea. And then just sort of a variation on that theme. Is there a project that we, approved in the last 12 to 18 months? It's now come to fruition that might be worth highlighting. I am embarrassed to admit I haven't done a lot of driving around recently to sort of see our projects, but
why don't I go through and I'll pull out all the COAs for ADUs that have been built, like that we've approved in the last 4 or 5 years, and then we can see how many of those have been built.
I think
probably cross. I can see like how many compliance inspections have gone through. Yeah. Okay. So I'll work on that for this next month. And I think ADUs would be a really good topic because we're getting more and more of them. And I mean, in light of a lot of the zoning code changes that we've seen. And I think there's a lot of questions about it. A lot of people are nervous about, well, zoning has opened me up to this possibility. Has the HPC opened me up to this possibility? So we can sort of explain how it fits with the criteria.
Yeah, I think
we can talk about. Go ahead, Katie.
I was just gonna say it would be nice to have the actual residents know that that's an option for them to be able to continue to afford to live in their house and have it not just be developers coming with it and landlords. But so I think that would be great to kind of be I mean, we all know everything's getting more and more expensive around here. So having them know an accessory dwelling unit could be paying for their mortgage.
So especially focusing on owners that have done it themselves as opposed to a developer.
I think that would be nice.
Yep. And on the off chance, I might incentivize somebody to, rather than tear down a garage structure, salvage it. And
right. Which our last newsletter definitely highlighted those.
Yeah. And then along with ADUs, we can talk about historically they existed in historic neighborhoods as well. So I think they call them granny flats or something like that, or carriage houses and things of that sort. So I don't know if there are any, we can look around and see if there are good examples of people who used an existing one or built a new one that really fits in historically with the house in the district.
Anything else we need to talk about with respect to the newsletter?
We have a layout volunteer. Does anybody want to volunteer to write the copy? The text?
I haven't volunteered in the past. I feel like I should.
Yay. Thank you, Chair Bouchard.
You got it. I'm going to be relying on some people in the Zoom for help.
Yeah, it can be tag teamed.
If we do decide to do something separate for the landmark owners, I don't mind working on that one. I don't know if you need to get permission from your department to send out another.
Yeah, if it were only going to landmark owners, there are 85 of those. I don't see that it would be too much additional cost. We just need to make sure we have the budget for it, and I can get that cleared. But just to clarify, you're thinking these landmark postcards would go to landmark owners specifically and not to all district.
Right, landmark owners only, just as a reminder. And then the newsletters, they will go out this fall.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And are you serious about the July timeline for the postcard? Because I mean, the bill goes out in July, but I mean, I think you have till January to pay for it, it's the end of December to pay for it.
Yeah. July, August. Yeah, yeah. It's just a postcard. I can do that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I'll email you what I learned from the management about that. Thank you all.
You
This is
got
good.
it. Let's move on to new business, minor COA report. Clerk Holmes. You're on mute.
I'll be getting that out to you today. Y'all, today I had a conversation with Carla. I was kind of pulled the report yesterday and I was kind of confused on some things. So got clarification.
I would just like to add a couple of small notes. I probably should have done this at the beginning of the hearing. July meeting, by way of reminder, is the second Tuesday to avoid the 4th of July weekends, correct? July 12, 2022.
That's correct.
All right, everyone make sure you've got that on your calendars.
I won't be here July 12th.
Okay.
I'll be at the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions conference that day.
Terrific.
I will not be here on the 12th either.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so we do have a new commissioner who, actually this would be for your seat, Tad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she applied and it's being forwarded for review by the Board of County Commissioners on the 24th of June. So if we were able to get her sworn in and on, oriented before the 12th, then she could potentially participate in that hearing.
I will be in the air during our meeting on that day, so that'd be great.
Me too. I was trying to think maybe I can squeeze it in, but my plane doesn't land till like noon. So
right.
Wait, so Tad, is there a chance today was your last meeting?
That may be.
Possibly.
Possibly.
I'm glad I could have my tantrum today then. That's a good thing I went ahead and did it.
Wow.
Tad, you have been so wonderful to have on our commission. So much insight and just history in Durham, just knowing, what's been here, having that eye.
I need to go into consulting with homeowners now.
That would be very lucrative.
Do this for bank, not for volunteering.
Yeah. I'll take all referrals, Carla.
So no, Tad, you've been terrific. Obviously, I mean, you're the one who nominated me to be part of this commission. So, thank you for that. And thank you for all of your efforts. There's nothing more I could say that is going to do justice to what Carla said. You've been
your nomination probably was the best thing I did on the commission. So,
that might be debatable. That might be debatable. Laura, do you want to talk about your situation as well?
Yeah, I think I also have to resign, not because I want to, but because we unexpectedly moved from Durham to Chapel Hill, which was not part of our plan, but a house in a magical little neighborhood here popped up that we used to live in next to a dear friend, and we decided to try to get it, and we did. So this month we are between finalizing the move between the two houses, but Carla tells me we must be Durham residents to participate on the commission. So I think for that reason, I have to resign, though I'm still close by and have really enjoyed this a lot and learned a lot and care very much about historic Durham, and will continue to own properties in town. And
why don't,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, why don't we touch base about timeline and everything? It is true. And, we lost Commissioner Dan for the same reason of, just the residency is one of the requirements of participating on this commission to have residency in Durham County or Durham City. So why don't we touch base about the timeline? And I can, if you were able to participate on the 12th, would you be able to?
I actually can't.
You can't. Okay, so
that is worse.
So that's moot anyway. So and we would need your formal resignation written either by email. You could just email me and say I'm resigning as of this date before we can advertise your position.
Okay.
And get your replacement. So
I have a couple ideas for people that might make good members, and I can include that in the email too, if helpful, Carla.
Okay, sure. That would be
So to make sure we have quorum on the 12th.
Yeah, let's do that right now.
We're going to need to have 5 of Andy, myself, Katie, Faye, Tad's replacement, Rakeem.
So that would be, yeah. So if we would have 6 if we had that replacement
Yep.
and Rakeem. Okay. So
Well,
it
Laura-
seems like
Go ahead,
at least
Carla.
one of those should work out, hopefully.
Well, Laura, like I said in my email to you earlier today, you've brought a clear-eyed practicality to all the cases you considered, a really wonderful viewpoint, and thank you so much for your service as well.
Yeah, it's been fun, and I'm sad that we never met in person during my time. I'm going to look forward to bumping into you in person on the street.
I hope that happens.
Dear
Carla,
Laura, it's been wonderful working with you.
Carla, how deep is our docket looking for the 12 for planning purposes?
I think it's, let me go to the, I think it's 3 off the top of my head, but
Okay.
let me just, I can tell you. Let's see, 1. Amanda, you don't happen to have it up, do you?
I can go pull it up right now.
Because I know we had 2 that we bumped from the previous, and then we have 1 extra. So I'm pretty sure it's around 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna go pull it up right now. All right, and so that's going to be July 12th, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's looking like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last item. Carla, do you want to say anything about Trinity Park and the presentation we participated in last week, just to give folks a heads up?
Yeah, sure. So Matt, thank you also for volunteering to present there. So we served on a panel with a few other historic preservation professionals and volunteers in the area to talk with Trinity Park about the possibility of them becoming a local historic district. This is something that they have been considering for years now. I think as teardowns happen in the neighborhood now and then, the concern comes up of how to protect some of these historic structures. And so I think ultimately no decision was made on whether they would follow through this time. But we did share with them about the historic district and answer their questions and listen to some interesting discussions that they had on it. Did you want to add anything, Chair Bouchard?
Other than to say my takeaway was I thought there was a lot of open-mindedness. I think on balance, the discussion was pro, historic district. But my sense was there's just a fair amount of inertia, if not some outright opposition to local historic district status in that neighborhood. And so I'm just not sure much is going to come out of it. And it sounds like this is a process they've been through every now and again over the years. And so it was difficult for me to gauge how serious they were about seeking historic district status. But I enjoyed the presentation.
2 of the concerns that came up were just having to seek permission for very innocuous things like a pathway in your backyard, and also the fear of creating neighbor to neighbor conflict and sort of vigilance on who's doing work without a COA and that kind of thing. Those were 2 issues that came up. So,
guys, that's the end of our agenda.
Go ahead,
April. Go ahead.
I think it's a good sign because I had a conversation with them a few years ago too at a neighborhood meeting. So the fact that every 2 years they're revisiting, I think that might be positive. But yeah, I think they're still chewing on it.
Most definitely. I didn't see a huge groundswell to do it, but great attendance. I mean, there's interest in the topic, so we'll see what happens. That's all we've got, guys. Does anyone else have anything they want to share before we part ways for another month?
So I just have one random thought for Carla. I was a little disturbed that NCCU could just close an alley And I understand the process they go through the city and that it doesn't come to us. But I do find that since the alley's in a historic district and it's part of the historic network, we should be part of that process. You shouldn't just be able to close an alley in a historic district without
Yes,
involvement.
that crossed my mind too. So when I went to the map, it didn't draw, like the alley right of way wasn't included in the district. Otherwise, I would have brought that up. But the same thing came to my mind because alleys are just fundamentally historic, right? Sorry, are you saying something, April?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you. I was saying, yes, they are part of the historic district.
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't actually included in the outline of the district. So I didn't think I really had a.
No, anything that those boundaries, like that contiguous the right of way is part of us. I think that argument can be made because I've heard staff in the planning department make that argument to me in other instances all over the place.
Ah, okay.
So I think it's consistent and there's precedent, and yeah, I mean, that's my personal opinion. And yes, I was disturbed that an alley could just be.
Okay, well, I'll bring that up I'll bring it up with Grace and other land use staff that deal with the street closing process.
Okay, and I will.
Thanks for that.
I'll be here if she wants to ask me questions. She knows she can.
Okay, are you listening, Grace? I don't know if she's still here. She can go back and listen to this.
Yeah. Thanks. That's my only random thought at the end of the meeting that I'm continuing past when I know everybody's ready to go.
Well, we got through 4 hearings and some administrative stuff here at the end, and it's before noon. I think we should, call that a win. Hope everybody has a terrific 4th of July holiday weekend. Once again, thanks to Tad and Laura for all of your contributions. Should this be your last hearing, and see everybody else soon.
So
You're adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.